we focus on the rectangle triangle drill. These are very simple training drill for players, for amateur players, and as well as grown-up players, for better players, players that are trying to make it in football. Now, this drill has its own advantages. In general, it creates what we call player intelligence. It increases players' passing capabilities. It also increases players' awareness. When we talk of awareness, we mean that player may decide on when to go for a ball or when not to. It also increases on ball control. It also increases on space maximization. And it also utilizes speed maximization. Now, the reason as to why it's called the rectangle triangle drill, it's because we have two different shapes in one single drill. We have the rectangle and then we have the triangle. In this form 6, 7, 4, and 5, when you look them closely, they form a twisted rectangle in short. So that's why we call it the rectangle triangle too. Now, this is the case now. Let's assume here we have player A and player B. We have player C here. We have player D, for instance, and player E in that case. Now, this is what happens. In assumption that the ball, we are trying to build that play. So the ball moves from point 4 towards point 5. Now the drill starts to kick in here. Player number D or player E, who is on point 5, will play the ball into space. Our space here now is marked by point 1. This is a space where we want that player to play. Naturally or originally, the player would play to point 3, where we have player A or B. But in this case now, because we have to utilize or to maximize the space in order to create our own play, now player D will play the ball to point 1. That's where he's going to play his ball or her ball. Now player A will move into this space, collect the ball, and then make a turn. Let's use that simple as a turn. By the time player A moves to this place, controls the ball, and makes that turn, player B now moves into this space, which is point 2. Player A will pass the ball to point 2, where we have player B. And immediately after passing that ball to player B at this point 2, he quickly, as well as we say speed maximization and space maximization, at that particular point, we have a void here because we had a player who had left. So in order to create that ball consistent and play flow, player A, after giving that pass, will move back to this space where player B will now pass the ball to him to create a play flow. Then we assume this, we might have some elements of the opponent in this case. So that means player A will not be able to move with the ball into our target area. So he has to pass the ball into space. At that particular point, player B will make the run to this place, an overlap run to collect the ball into space. Because we are trying to work on speed maximization and space maximization, which is the most common sense into this drill now. After receiving the ball in this place, immediately and quickly, he passes the ball directly to point 4, where we have player number C or player C. So player C, because now we will have player A, we'll have player B and player C with the ball now. And these points, in most cases, I do tell some players in drills, in sessions, we assume they are opponents. They will allow us to grow our intelligence in football. So we will have 0.7, 0.6, 0.5, and 0.4 as opponents, with player C and player B, the only players we have. So that means the opponent, which are the points now, they have an overload of players. They outwin us because we have only player B and player C in this space, and Kenneth 0.5, 0.4, 0.7, and 0.6, which are opponents now. So we must have a quick one-to-one V play. What do I mean? Now, after receiving the ball in this space, player C will pass the ball into space. Player B in this case did, after passing the ball, made the move to this space to maximize that space in order for opponent not to win that ball. After receiving the ball, he will play the ball into space for player C. So after passing this ball here, player C will now make the move into this space. After playing the ball into space here, player B now moves into this space, where player C will pass the ball back to him. In this case, we will have these points 0.4, 5, 6, and 7. All now in this case we assume as the opponent players in disarray. They are disarranged, they are disorganized. In this case, when the ball is passed here, we assume point C, who seems to be our opponent now, will move towards point 7, where we have our player C now receiving the ball. So that means this area will be free of any opponent, where player B, who is now the playmaker in this case, will have enough space to play our ball. That means now we will have all this area free of charge to disperse or to get dispersed, where we have player E, who in this case happens to be our attacker or our target man. You now pass the ball so simple, with no any obstacles, with no any opponent in that case, because we've already disorganized our opponent throughout the session that we had. Note that every single pass must be as clear as possible, as visionary as possible, as surgical as possible, because this drill mostly, as I said, it encourages us to do more on passing and ball control as well. Ball control. Where does the ball control come in this case? The moment player B played the ball at this point A, we needed a player who can clinically control the ball in order to play at point C or to point C. So that means if you are not good in ball control and quick feet, it will be so hard for you to initiate this pass, therefore giving the opponent an upper hand to collect that ball. So in the first case, if you're not that good and you haven't grown so good in your passing, I always encourage you to start with the triangle drill, what you call the pass and follow drill. After getting to know more about the pass and follow drill, now you can initiate the rectangle triangle drill. This one opens up the player's mindset, it opens up the player's decision making, it opens up the player's agility, it opens up the player's surgical movements, precision, and the vision. Thank you.